Petition is still going up, by the way. 1,812,000 now. It's going up. We're seeing whether it might reach 2 million during the time of this show. Indeed, we've also got lots of talk going on this morning about people getting back to work. There's an initiative which is going to be brought in by Lord Timpson. Remember him? He's the unelected prisons minister. He's a guy who loves the idea of giving convicts jobs, which is, you know, fair enough, although, as I said many times, I'm not sure about teaching them how to cut keys is necessarily the greatest idea you've ever had. But apparently ministers believe tens of thousands more prisoners can fill labour shortages by targeting them with more job support and training while behind bars. You know, you might think this is a good idea. They want to put prisoners into jobs when they come out of prison rather than let them reoffend. On paper, that sounds like a good idea, but I don't know practically how that's going to work exactly, because there's another story this morning.
Meanwhile, there are prisoners earning more than prison guards.
They actually earn more while they're in prison because they're allowed out of prison to work. Yeah. I suppose that's good, as long as it keeps them out of committing crime.
It depends what they've done, but I've always thought that actually prisoners should be doing something. The idea that they all have these cosy cells, cosy bedrooms, that they have Wi-Fi on demand, that they have just sit around watching telly or going to the gym, is hopeless. And that, you know, a prisoner, if they're not a mass murderer, should be doing something, should be learning, should be even getting out there. I mean, in America, you see chain gangs and they're fixing the roads. Well, we could do with some of that here.
We could, absolutely right.
So, yeah, they should be...
We're going to go at the phones. We don't always do it this time of the morning, but Chris has phoned in about welfare benefits. I'm going to find out what he's got to say. Chris, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike.
Morning. What can I do for you, sir?
Just a quick other thing, actually. My grandfather started our family business in the 50s and only employed ex-convicts. Oh, yeah. And he only ever had one that went wrong.
Interesting.
Very
interesting.
Get on their feet.
Yeah.
I phoned in. I'm a carer. I was a carer for my mum and dad from 2016. Yeah. Unfortunately, Dad's passed 18 months ago. But I'm left with Mum with Parkinson's and dementia, bedbound with a whole host of illnesses. And I claimed I didn't know I was able to claim a carer's allowance, so I only started claiming from 2020. Right. So
it's not a lot of money, though, is it?
No, it's just over £500 a month. But it helps. It helps.
Sure.
But they've written to me now, because I picked it up on one of your shows, that they were going to have pass a law that allowed them to look into people's bank accounts. Right. Well, they're not even waiting for that. They've sent me a demand under the Universal Credit Journal that you have to do online. They wanted me to re-establish my identity. Right. So I sent them certified copies of my passport and driving licence. But they have demanded 4 months of bank accounts. Right. And so I've written back to them saying they're not going to get them under Article 8 of the ECHR, that I'm entitled to a home and private life. Yes. And that without a judge's wet signature or a warrant, they will get nothing. Right. And I'm going to wait and see what they have to say.
Interesting. Because, I mean, again, you're not the person they should be coming after. You know, if you're working as a carer, you're actually working. That's a job, in my view, right? You're not sitting around doing nothing. You're caring for your elderly mother, which is an entirely, you know, laudable thing to be doing, and they shouldn't be looking to take money off you.
Well, I do it, Mike, because I had great parents. They were married for 64 years, together 70. I never heard them have a row. Yeah. Ever. Wow. She was my rock when I was growing up. Yeah. And I do it just because I said I'd never put her in a care home. Yeah. I mean, I miss work terribly. I love work. Yeah. But I will look after my responsibilities to my mum until she doesn't need it anymore. Right. And then I will go back to work. I'm 63. Yeah. But a young 63.
But this is, as I suspect, will happen to an awful lot of people, Chris. They'll come after people that they think are easy targets, you know? The people who are good at avoiding scrutiny, the people who are good at, you know, forging things and getting money which they shouldn't have, will continue to do that.
Yeah, in their parlance, it's called the low-hanging fruit.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, Chris, listen, I really appreciate your call. Thank you very much for telling us that. Emma, this is a typical story, isn't it? This is what will happen. Whenever they crack down on welfare benefits, they always crack down on the wrong people.
Oh, they'll crack down on British people like Chris, who's doing a really, really difficult job looking after his parents that he loves.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Also saving the state quite a bit of money.
How much would that cost? How much would that kind of level of care cost the state if there was a decent, functioning kind of end of life or even just a basic social care system?
Yeah.
Because they're pouring billions into the NHS and they cannot be bothered. And Wes Streeting says all the right things about, we need to start looking at social care. Well, we really, really do. Because old people are being left either stuck in hospital, which messes up the NHS even more, or just sent home with no care. Literally no safety net whatsoever. So I think Chris is doing a really valuable job, and it's worth a lot more than £500 a month.
Well, you would think so. The big story for Keir Starmer this morning, by the way, is nothing to do with the weather, nothing to do with benefits, all to do with spiking drinks, which is going to apparently be made a specific offence. He came out with this thing the other day that we're going to make it safe for women and girls at night to go out. Well, how are you going to do that then, exactly?
Do you know the only way to avoid having your drink spiked is to hold your drink with you? I mean, I don't think women and girls should hold it, like put your hand over it, take it to the lavatory, come back, keep an eye on it. That is the only way. If you drink, and I don't think women and girls should have to do this, or anyone should have to do this. But we've seen an alarming rise in this spiking incidents. It never happened when I was in my sort of clubbing days, so I don't really understand it. But anyway, it's happening. And this idea that you're going to make it a crime, well, we've heard that many times before.
It's already a crime.
It's already a crime.
It is a crime.
But also, the point about this crime is that you don't track down the person who's done it usually. So, or you wake up and you feel terrible and you're not really sure.
Exactly right.
So, but also, why is this a priority right now?
Well, exactly.
For the Prime Minister?
He's hosting a summit in Downing Street from 8 o'clock this morning, right?
Ludicrous.
A drink spiking summit. When what he should be doing is addressing the problems that people have got this morning, waking up with flooded houses, flooded roads,
or getting his wellies on and going out to these rural communities,
having a look and seeing and meeting people. Talking of ridiculous wastes of money, this is a story that came across the desk this morning, apropos of nothing at all. It was about Labour peer Tom Watson, who's now got a paid advisor's job to what's being called a spy tech company called Palantir, which bizarrely is owned by the son of the guy that he used to be bankrolled by, Max Mosley. Remember him, the Formula One guy, who was involved in dungeons once in a while?
Yes.
Well, he's got a son who apparently is now the British sort of representative of this company called Louise Mosley. But the thing that I found astonishing about this story, Palantir has a £330 million contract with the NHS to create a data system, right, to collect data on behalf of an American company. But people say the NHS needs more money. 330 million they're giving to this lot?
Millions being spent on this kind of stuff, gathering data.
Yeah.
And also Tom Watson being involved in this stuff. This is so murky. As you say, the links with Max Mosley's son,
and he hasn't revealed in his House of Lords
how much he's going to be paid.
How much he's getting from them.
This is a sort of spy firm. I mean, really, a CIA-linked data mining company.
Yeah.
And I think Lord Watson needs to come out and explain. Well, he just needs to be honest about how much he's being paid and what exactly he's doing.
Yes, that would be nice. Let's talk about Adele. She's on page 3 of The Sun and page 3 of The Mail.
Yeah.
The 2-year Las Vegas residency that she's finished just made her £100 million.
£100 million.
So, which is very nice. And she says she's not sure if she's going to come back and perform ever again. She welled up several times during her final 2-hour show at the Coliseum at Caesars Palace on Saturday and admitted, "I'm effing crying again. I've been crying all day." She's in a right old state, isn't she?
She is. She's always sobbing. This is her 100th.
She just made £100 million. I'd be laughing.
Yeah, she's been
going, cheerio. Thanks very much.
But would you call yourself a real musician playing at Caesars Palace every night pretty much every other night?
Now.
I know.
I mean, the Sphere
2
in
years,
Vegas.
though.
Well, the Sphere in Vegas had U2 on for about, 2 months or something like that.
I don't know. It just always seems to me not that authentic. But but each time she comes out and she says, "I'm not sure I'll ever perform again." I think the last time an album came out, she said something like, "I'm not sure I'll ever make another album." So everyone panics and buys it.
Well, she's doing the great thing, which is starting off with a brilliant album. The second one, not quite so brilliant. The third one, absolute rubbish.
Yeah.
She's going backwards. So God knows what the fourth one
She'll be back.
Let's have a look at front page of The Sun, though. Unusually, The Sun have got a different story for everybody else. 3 lines exclusive, 30 years of shirt, which is a great headline. They found Bobby Moore's missing 1966 World Cup top. the famous red shirt, which, of course, I didn't even know was missing.
I didn't know it was missing.
But apparently, it hasn't been seen for, you know, tens of 30 years.
A couple of decades, yeah. Tina, is it Tina Malone?
Tina Moore, his wife.
Tina Moore, his former wife, really wants it back.
Yeah.
And I can't get excited about this. I mean, who cares? I don't understand this obsession with...
It's part of our tradition, though.
Oh, well, whatever. This obsession with sweaty football shirts and people swapping their shirts and people wanting...
I mean, you can pay an awful lot of money for
Of course. Oh, no, no.
You go down the hallway here at Talk Sport, they've got loads of really famous framed shirts signed by people. Worth a lot of money.
Yeah, of course they are.
That's not an invitation to come in and steal them, by the way, for anybody who's listening to this.
We've been an absolute failure anyway, haven't we, since then? I mean, you know...
Well, not if you listen to Gareth Southgate. We've done very well, according to Gareth.
Getting sort of a little bit...
We've got to 2 finals of the Euros and not won them. Apparently that's a great success. Just a little note in passing for those who do watch and study the football, that even the Telegraph's got a bit on the page 1. The new manager, same old Man United. They've got this new manager who came into much fanfare because they got rid of Eric Ten Hag and they brought this guy in from Portugal, and it turns out that he doesn't make them play any better than they did before, and they drew 1-1 with Ipswich.
Quelle surprise.
I know.
But should we just finish the story, the Bobby Moore story? They think they found the shirt. There's a collector, somebody Evans, a funny collector, and he's got loads of stuff. Neville Evans, that's it. Yeah. And it seems that the shirt might be in his collection.
Excellent. So it was a Sun investigation, I think, that tracked it all down. Apparently Sir Keir Starmer's going to appear on This Morning from 10 o'clock. That'll be riveting. Luckily, you can watch Julie Hartley-Brewer on this channel instead, which will be far more interesting. Let's get a voice note from Mark.
This is Mark from Dunmore. So let me get this right. We are borrowing billions each month to give away to foreign countries, illegal immigrants, at the same time as taking money away from our pensioners, farmers and the police and the armed forces. Is this really the best way to run a country? It all seems upside down to me. Great show, mate.
Mark, it is totally upside down. You're absolutely right. It is ridiculous. And all of this money that we're giving away to the countries around the world to make their carbon emissions reduce, $300 billion.
Which will not help a single farmer in India. It will not help the rising sea levels around Mauritius and the Seychelles. I mean, this is absolutely nonsense. What a brilliant voice note, Mark. You summed it up there. Yeah. And that is why this petition that we've been talking about is growing like Topsy, because people are just saying, this doesn't make sense.
No, they've had enough. It's now reached 1,820,000, by the way. We're keeping an eye on it. We're counting it down for you, as indeed you would expect us to. These are the number of people in this country who have signed a petition who want to have a general election called. Only 5 months in to the new Labour government, because so disillusioned with it. Let's talk about cocktails, though, because Christmas party season is upon us, almost. There might not be any mistletoe allowed, but you can get a nice Premier Inn cocktail for your trouble. Apparently, they're saying, you know, basically, there's all sorts of other hotels and chains that have it. You've got the White Lady from the Savoy, you've got Raffles and its Singapore Sling. I'm happy to say that I think I've had both of those. You've got the Ritz with its dangerously drinkable mimosa. I went drinking in the Ritz once. Don't do it again. It's very expensive. So the Premier Inn have come up with the Dreamcatcher.
The Dreamcatcher.
Tell us about it.
Well, on first glance, it looks okay. I thought, well, that's nice. It's sort of dark. It's sort of purpley with a big frothy top, and then it's got purple bits on the top. I think it's got sort of Parma violets. So it's it's topped, but this is where it all falls apart. Yeah. It's topped with a vegan foam.
Oy.
Any foam and any vegan foam. That sounds
Is that like
awful.
the stuff you scrape off a vegan and make it into something? It doesn't sound good to me.
It doesn't sound good, does it?
Vegan foam.
To represent clouds. Yeah. 3 edible stars, and supposedly taste like Parma violet sweets, which also they were a bit gross. They kind of reminded me of my granny's kind of
complicated, isn't
pillows, you know, the Parma violets and lavender.
It's got vodka, passion fruit liqueur, curacao liqueur, ginger syrup, sugar syrup, lemon juice and foam. Sounds a bit sweet as well.
And a cocktail expert. What are they called? Mixologists. They're
Mixologists,
yes. And I think, you know, a good cocktail is worth its weight in gold, but a bad cocktail, most cocktails are just dodgy and too sweet and just full of blue stuff and whatever. Yeah, keep it simple. But anyway, this mixologist has said any violet flavour is divisive. You don't need very much at all to make a drink taste like soap. It's not a flavour that resonates with most drinkers. No. So I'm not sure the Premier Inn...
Also, are you really going to go to the Premier Inn where you hope to get a room for probably less than 100 quid? Yeah. You're going to spend 12 quid on a cocktail? No,
I don't think so.
I really don't think you're going to.
And I think it'd be...
Listen, nothing against Premier Inn as a chain. I think they give you great value for money, but I'm not going there to drink cocktails.
No, not really.
Not really. I was out on Saturday night and I had a very nice vodka martini, which is a real test. If you know how to make a proper vodka martini, then you're okay.
But that's what I mean. Keep it simple. And a good vodka martini is, you know...
Yeah.
it's worth it.
It's superb. Let's talk about the front page of the Mail today, which has also got something completely different. They've got an exclusive. The head of Sir Keir Starmer's union, the GMB, is embroiled in allegations of harassing and bullying women. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, and this is the GMB. This is one of Labour's biggest backers.
Yeah.
And guess what? Guess who's a member? The Prime Minister is a member. Of course he is.
Of course he is.
500,000 plus members. Anyway, the General Secretary of the GMB, Gary Smith, who actually endorsed Keir Starmer for Prime Minister, of course he did, has 4 counts of bullying and harassment against him, but also just seems to be a litany of nastiness. People are saying, former senior officials are saying the GMB is a viper's nest and workers' subs are used like confetti to fight complaints.
Apparently, so after securing his £148,000 a year job, it's always good, isn't it, when they get the old six-figure salary, Mr Smith was secretly recorded warning a female employee, "We've got better lawyers than you," when she brought a sexual harassment claim against another official.
And he said to her, "Yeah, we know the guy harassed you, but basically we've got more money, we've got more expensive lawyers, there's no point fighting it, we're going to come at you all guns blazing." And I paraphrase, but that's what he said to this woman, even though he admitted that the claims were valid.
And a lot of numerous former and current GMB workers managed to say they liken the union to an old men's club. Spokesman for the GMB has said this: "We categorically deny claims of a bullying culture and do not recognise our union in the accounts of these former members of staff. And if you don't stop complaining, we're going to beat you up." No, sorry, no, they didn't say that bit. No, that bit at the end was my joke, OK? They didn't say that.
Not allowed to joke.
They deny it, basically, just in case it's a non-crime hate incident. The GMB, come for me. I'm not having it. Let's talk about also the big story this week, which will be a bigger story probably after tomorrow, the assisted dying bill. Telegraph's got a piece saying it's likely to pass.
Yeah. People seem to be going back and forth on this. I was, covering some stories at the weekend where people were saying, no, actually, on balance, from the MP's side, there's too much opposition. But actually, the Cabinet are pretty split. We know that Wes Streeting is anti. We know that Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, the Lord Chancellor, is against.
She's against it, although she was warned, wasn't she, at the weekend, because she said that she was being guided in her decision by her faith, right? And somebody, I can't remember who it was, I think a senior lord said, politicians should not be guided by their religion, i.e. she's a Muslim, on any of this stuff, because it's a question of the law. It's not a question of morality.
True, but it's a bill. It's a conscience vote, isn't it?
I suppose so. But if
they've been told.
But if you're the Justice Secretary, surely you have to put that to one side and be neutral.
Yeah, no. I mean, I agree with you. She wrote to her constituents, and it's Birmingham Ladywood, and it's an overwhelmingly Muslim constituency. I don't know why Esther Ranson's demands are being sort of pushed through the Commons, but here we go.
I think we've got her daughter coming on the show later on. Piers Morgan was on Laura Kunsberg yesterday, and he said, even for him, unbelievably, he said, I'm normally very sure about everything, and I have a very strong opinion on everything. He said, I don't really know on this one.
I know, and I think that's what's surprising me, is that they're coming out saying 2/3 of the country, even higher than that, up to 80%, 90% of people are pro the assisted dying bill. And I think genuinely many people, of course we don't want people suffering worse than an animal. You would put down an animal if they were suffering and in such pain. But we can also see the other side, which is actually it's going to put pressure on a lot of elderly people who have, I don't know, unscrupulous relatives who don't want to pay thousands and thousands in care costs at the end of their life to think, well, maybe I should shuffle off this mortal coil.
And I mean, the thing for me is that those people who are having to make these kinds of decisions and who are facing these kinds of dilemmas, generally speaking, they work it out, and it doesn't ever end with people getting prosecuted. So, I don't know. But the thing that's slightly sinister for me is the guy who's made these Sarco-suicide pods, the bloke over in the Netherlands, I think, says that he's going to bring them here if the assisted dying bill goes through. So you can presumably get one in the middle aisle at Lidl's, a couple of bunches of bananas, some slippers, and a suicide pod, please. I mean, it's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is bizarre.
Very strange. Let's see, what can we finally talk about?
Transgender
Trump, front page of the Times.
It just made me laugh.
This doesn't surprise me.
He's going to axe transgender troops. He's not having any of that nonsense in his military.
No. He's not. I mean, well,
he's going to lose about 15,000. Is it about 15,000 of his troops?
Something like that, yeah.
There are 15,000 people who face being summarily
But that's a very small number. But the Americans have actually got a proper military. They've actually got 1.3 million.
Yeah.
I mean, 15,000 out of the British Army would be loads.
He's going to declare that transgender personnel are unfit to serve in the US Armed Forces.
Yeah.
And he's preparing an executive order to ensure their removal.
Well, I mean, I suppose a lot of people will applaud him for that, but there'll be the usual sort of suspects who will, of course, go bananas. Speaking of which, let's go back to the Jaguar story, because over the weekend, I don't know if you saw, I think it was in the Times, the boss of Jaguar hit back and decided for some bizarre reason, I would go at Nigel Farage, because Nigel Farage had come out and said, Jaguar, we're going to go bust because of this ridiculous advert that we've seen. We made it onto Plank of the Week last week. Rawdon Glover, his name is, and he basically says something which is so ridiculous that I'm going to point it out. He basically says that, you know, people like Nigel Farage are not the customers we want. Who does he think buys Range Rovers? And I can tell you exclusively, this is not a great surprise to anybody, Nigel Farage does actually own a Range Rover, which is owned by Jaguar Land Rover, which he pays money for, and they're now saying they don't want him as a customer. And also, it's a really bad idea to start saying we don't want you, we don't want that kind of customer. That's not how it works, mate. What do you want? You're going to be charging someone. They want a load of younger generation Gen Zers, right, who haven't got any money, who can't afford to pay upwards of 100,000 quid for a car. It's so bizarre. It's like Vogue and Elle and all of that lot advertising their incredibly expensive handbags and clothes with sort of 12-year-old girls. You know, it's just, it's not the market. Well, this is his quote. Interview with the Sunday Times. People love us for our history and our heritage, but that has not led to huge commercial success. Really? The average age of the Jaguar client is quite old and getting older. We've got to access a completely different audience, and that audience isn't centred around people of the demographic of Mr Farage. Quite the reverse. He literally has just peed off an entire sort of cohort of people who actually have the money to buy his expensive cars, because the young people certainly don't. Yeah, I mean, I had a Jaguar 2 cars ago, right, and it was very nice, but, you know, it cost quite a lot of money, and I'm not getting another one now. Exactly. Thanks very much indeed. So you have changed the cohort. You actually have. That's another car you won't be selling. You won't be selling. Well done, mate. Congratulations. Absolutely unbelievable. Very good to see you. Emma, thank you very much indeed. Emma Woolf there. A couple of notes for you. Here's one from Rob. Morning, Mike. Great start to the week. You will never see Keir Starmer with his wellies on, mixing with ordinary people. Why? Because he can't interact with ordinary people, and he's terrified of the action he might get. Well, it's true. Whenever you see Keir Starmer out and about anywhere, in fact, last time he went to Wales, he went to see the Welsh farmers, and then he ran away before any of them could talk to him. He ran around the back, didn't he? Yeah. Because they wanted to talk to him about their massive concerns about his horrific budget. I know, incredible. One from Mark in Caterham. Morning, Mike. I was on a train yesterday and a rather loud couple got on and proceeded to call the police as someone had been nasty about her boyfriend online. I listened as, of course, they called on the speakerphone, but the police questioned why she was calling, and then she hung up. What a waste of police time.